Barry Gibb was born on September 1, 1946, in a place called Douglas on the Isle of Man. He became one of the most famous musicians, singers, and songwriters in modern music. When Barry was young, he showed an amazing gift for music. His family saw how talented he was and helped him start performing with his brothers, Robin and Maurice. Together, they formed a group that became super famous around the world, the Bee Gees. They started small, doing little shows in Australia in the 1950s, but their incredible talent quickly made them stars everywhere. The Bee Gees became really successful in the late 1960s and 1970s. They were amazing at singing in harmony and helped create the pop and disco sound. Barry, with his special high singing voice, became the leader of the group and wrote most of their songs. He wrote and produced tons of hit songs, not just for the Bee Gees, but for other famous singers too. Songs like Staying Alive, How Deep Is Your Love, and Night Fever became classics that everyone knows. These songs defined the Saturday Night Fever era and made the Bee Gees famous for the disco movement. But Barry's songwriting skills went way beyond disco music. He wrote songs for and worked with artists like Barbra Streisand, Dolly Parton, Kenny Rogers, Diana Ross, and Dionne Warwick. This showed he could write great songs in many different styles: pop, country, R&B, and adult contemporary music. Very few songwriters in history have been as successful as Barry. He wrote over 1,000 songs and had hit songs on the charts for many decades. He was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which proves how much he changed music forever. While Barry's work life was full of big wins, his personal life was deeply connected to both happy times and sad times with his family. The Bee Gees weren't just a band, they were brothers connected by blood and music. Losing his brothers Andy, Maurice, and Robin caused Barry terrible sadness, leaving him as the only surviving Gibb brother. In many interviews, he has talked openly about how painful it is to outlive his siblings. But he has kept going and honored their memory by keeping their music alive for new fans to discover. His strength, kindness, and commitment to keeping the Bee Gees' legacy going make him a symbol of pushing forward even when facing loss. Barry's impact isn't just in his records, but also in how he touched the hearts of millions of people around the world. His high singing voice became one of the most recognizable in music history, and when he performed on stage, he showed both confidence and warmth. Even after being in the music business for decades, he kept performing with passion, connecting with fans who grew up listening to the Bee Gees and with younger people just discovering their music. His long career and timeless music proved that truly great music never goes away. Barry Gibb's personal life, just like his career, has been filled with big moments, dramatic changes, and really important relationships. His first marriage was to Maureen Bates, a young woman he married on August 22, 1966, when he was only 19 years old. At that time, Barry was still in the early stages of becoming a famous musician, and he was trying to balance his quickly growing career with the challenges of being an adult. Their marriage didn't last long, though. Even though at first they seemed committed to building a life together, the marriage had problems because of Barry's growing fame and the tough pressures of living in the spotlight. The couple only lived together for a short time, and by July 1970, the marriage officially ended. People often look back on this short marriage as an important learning period in Barry's personal life, showing how hard it was for young stars to keep their lives stable during the wild 1960s pop culture era. Not long after this first marriage ended, fate brought Barry to meet the woman who would become the love of his life. While filming the BBC's really popular music show, Top of the Pops in London, Barry met Linda Gray, who was famous herself as the former Miss Edinburgh. Barry described their meeting as a moment of real luck, and they fell in love quickly. On September 1, 1970, which happened to be his 24th birthday, Barry Gibb and Linda Gray got married, starting what has become one of the longest-lasting marriages in the entertainment world. Their marriage has been the foundation of Barry's personal stability, surviving the chaos of fame, changes in the music business, and even the heartbreaking loss of his brothers. Together, Barry and Linda didn't just build a marriage, they also built a big, close family. They are proud parents of 5 children: Stephen, Ashley, Travis, Michael, and Alexandra. Their oldest son, Stephen Gibb, followed his father's path by choosing a career in music, becoming both a guitar player and a songwriter. He even worked with heavy metal and rock bands, showing how diverse musical interests are in the Gibb family. Barry is also a grandfather many times over, with 7 grandchildren who have brought even more joy into his life. Barry has often talked about how his wife and children keep him grounded, giving him credit for giving him purpose and balance amid the often overwhelming demands of being a star. In 2009, Barry and Linda strengthened their connection to the United States by officially becoming U.S. citizens while also keeping their UK citizenship. This dual citizenship represented not only Barry's lasting love for his British roots, but also his long-term commitment to the country where most of his adult life and professional success had happened. By this time, Barry had been living mainly in the United States since 1974, though he kept a home in the UK as a connection to where he came from. Barry Gibb's personal life also crossed paths with another music legend, Michael Jackson. In a 2014 interview with the Mirror newspaper, Barry thought back fondly on the friendship he had with the King of Pop. He shared that Michael Jackson would often stay at Barry's house in Miami, where he liked the comfort of Barry's family environment better than the craziness of hotel life. Barry painted a picture of Jackson's quirky and childlike personality, sitting in the kitchen, watching fans outside his hotel on TV, giggling in his famous high-pitched laugh, hee. He remembered that Jackson even lived upstairs for a while right before the highly publicized child molestation trial. Barry made it clear that they never talked about the legal case. Instead, their friendship was built on creative teamwork and companionship. The two would write music together, share wine, and even drink enough sometimes that Jackson would fall asleep on the floor. Barry admitted that he really misses Jackson, showing the sense of loss he feels, not just as a fan of Jackson's music, but as a friend who knew him on a more personal level. Real estate also played an interesting part in Barry's life. In January 2006, he bought one of the most historically important properties in American music history, the former home of Johnny Cash and June Carter Cash in Hendersonville, Tennessee. Barry's goal wasn't just to own the house, but to fix it up and turn it into a songwriting retreat, a place where creativity and legacy could come together. The house, however, met a tragic end. While it was being renovated in April 2007, the property caught fire and was completely destroyed, erasing a piece of cultural history. Despite this heartbreaking loss, Barry had a new home built on the property, honoring the land and the musical spirit that had once lived there. Finally, in 2014, he decided to sell the estate, closing a chapter on a project that had carried both dreams and disappointment. At 78 years old, Barry Gibb finally opened up about the truth about his youngest brother, Andy Gibb, in a way he had never done before. For decades, Barry, who had the roles of both older brother and mentor, had carefully guarded his private grief, choosing instead to celebrate Andy's amazing talent and charisma whenever the subject came up. Now at an age where thinking back and being honest become more important than keeping up carefully built public walls, Barry allowed himself to speak with rare openness. He acknowledged the complicated mixture of pride, joy, regret, and sadness that had always defined his relationship with Andy. Andy Gibb was more than just the baby brother of the Bee Gees. To Barry, he was a boy full of light and potential, a naturally gifted singer whose charm seemed effortless. From the moment Andy first started performing, Barry saw signs of brilliance that matched what he and his brothers had achieved as a group. When Andy released hits like I Just Want to Be Your Everything and Shadow Dancing, Barry wasn't just his co-writer and producer, he was his biggest supporter, putting his own creative energy into making sure Andy succeeded. In those days, Barry often described Andy as the Gibb with the purest pop voice, a natural-born star who could have commanded the world stage for decades. But behind Andy's youthful smile and love for millions of fans, Barry saw a weakness that few others noticed. The truth that Barry revealed at 78 was that Andy's quick rise to fame came too fast, too young, and without the emotional protection to handle it. Barry admitted that he had worried constantly about his brother's vulnerability, his hunger for love, his longing for acceptance, and the way the pressures of fame made those insecurities bigger. Andy, he explained, was pushed into the spotlight before he had time to truly grow into himself, and that left him vulnerable to the destructive temptations that fame brought with it. Barry didn't shy away from the hardest part of the story, Andy's struggles with addiction. For years, Barry had spoken carefully about it, never wanting to reduce his brother's legacy to a warning story. But in this later reflection, Barry acknowledged how devastating it was to watch Andy battle his inner demons. He described the helplessness of knowing that no matter how much love and support the family gave, Andy could not fully escape the grip of drugs and the emotional pain that came with them. Barry's truth wasn't one of judgment, but of deep, lasting sadness. He admitted that he had often asked himself if there was more he could have done, if a different kind of guidance or tougher love might have saved Andy's life. When Andy passed away in 1988 at just 30 years old, Barry was devastated. Losing his baby brother was a wound that never truly healed. At 78, He confessed that even after all the successes of the Bee Gees, the awards, the recognition, and the legacy that spanned generations, Andy's absence was the silent shadow over it all. Every time Barry performed one of Andy's songs or heard his voice on a recording, it was as if time folded in on itself, reminding him of what was lost far too soon. Yet Barry also shared the truth about the love that continued beyond death. He spoke about how Andy remained alive in memory, in music, and in the unbreakable bond of brotherhood. He carried Andy with him in every lyric he wrote, in every note he sang, and in every stage he stepped onto. The truth, Barry said, was that Andy was never just the younger brother who didn't get enough time. He was a crucial part of the Gibb family story, someone whose presence shaped the very fabric of their lives. At 78 years old, Barry Gibb, the legendary Bee Gees frontman, finally opened up in an honest and heartfelt interview about his younger brother, Andy Gibb, revealing emotions and truths that he had carried privately for decades. Thinking back on his brother's life, Barry shared, Andy was a shining star, but he struggled in ways that people didn't fully understand. He was full of talent, full of life, but sometimes the pressures of fame and the lifestyle around him were too much to bear. The loss of Andy, who died tragically at just 30 years old, had left a permanent mark on Barry's life, one that he said he only fully realized with the passage of time. Barry remembered that the day Andy passed away was just 5 days after his 30th birthday, a milestone that should have been a moment of celebration, but instead became a moment of grief. He recalled with regret, "We had a disagreement shortly before his birthday, and I never imagined that would be the last time I would see him alive. I carry that with me every day."